Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. Thank you for joining us this morning for our Federal Financial Report training. My name is Kinza Ghaznavi. I'm the Grants Manager at EAC, and I'm joined by my co-host, Peg Rosenberry, who is our subject matter expert in grants.
Good morning, everyone.
We're going to just go through our agenda for today. Our training is going to cover the reporting requirements, the due dates, and how to submit, and then walk through the SF425, which is basically the form that you're going to find in the payment management system. And it'll be broken down into grant information, transactions, indirect costs, remarks, and certification. We'll also cover what kind of supporting documentation you should have to support your federal financial report in the case of oversight or audit. And then we'll go through some already received frequently asked questions, and then open it up to questions and answers for anything that you still want to have clarification on, and the resources that are available to you after this training is over. So diving in, we'll talk about the reporting requirements. So we require all grantees to submit a financial report. You should be familiar with the standard federal SF425. It's a form that has been filled out before for our grants. It is now just going to be in a new format, which is electronic, where we've partnered up with the Department of Health and Human Services to engage their payment management system, where you'll prepare and submit the SF425. So at this point, everyone should have an account with the payment management system for all the users that you want to give access to submit and certify the federal financial report. The due dates are twice a year. We're going to be requiring that we have this report submitted through PMS. In the past, we had it required once a year, due on December 31st. So this will be a change this year. The report is actually due on December 29th. What we're doing is standardizing all of our processes to match the federal financial report across federal agencies, which means that at the end of a reporting period, which is September 30th, which is the end of the fiscal year for the government, 90 days after that is when an annual report is due. So December 29th is the 90-day mark. So we have to be pretty precise now. In the past, we have also had an informal semi-annual report that is now formalized, and you will be submitting an FFR for the period ending March 31st. And then for a semi-annual, you get 30 days. So 30 days after is April 30th. So you should mark those two dates in your calendar. They will be recurring every year. Now, for CARES, we're off cycle because CARES has a very specific rule about the federal share being expended by December 31st. The first report is not due until February 28th, 2021. So this December, you will not be submitting a CARES FFR. You'll have 2 more months for that, and you'll send that in February 28th. It has already been set up for you in PMS, so you can look at it, you can start, drafting it, but you don't submit it until that time has passed, that December deadline has passed. Now, if you have not met all of your match for CARES by the end of this calendar year, you'll then start following the other due dates for all the other FFRs and be on cycle, which would mean after February 28th, your next report is due April 30th. And that will continue until you have met the match. Once you've met the match, we will create a final report and close out your CARES grant. As I've already said, the FFR, Federal Financial Report, is submitted through PMS, the Payment Management System. So all of our grants and grantees have been registered in PMS from the EAC side, and we've provided account information to each state to set up their authorized users. So you would use that information to request access and create your PMS account. If you have not done that, I will say that we are getting very close to the deadline at this point for these reports, and it does take a couple of days for the process to go through. Sometimes people do hit hiccups and hurdles, so you do want to get on that immediately. We will not be accepting FFRs via email anymore. Now, for each grant that you have from EAC that is not closed, you will have to submit a separate federal financial report. So for most of our grantees, they have an election security grant, which you may remember this year we combined the 2018 and 2020 funds into one report. So you're just giving us one FFR for election security. And then, of course, like I said, CARES is due in February, but then there are grantees who have their old 101 and 251 grants as well. So they will be submitting an FFR for each of those. We did send out some communication to support that work. If you do have a 101 and a 251, you would have received an email from us regarding the status of your funds and how to ease your entry for the FFR this year. A little bit more about the payment management system. Pretty, once you're set up, which is probably the hardest part, you can just normally log into the system using the credentials you get once you're a user. The login URL is here in blue. Once you're in the FFR component of the PMS system, you'll get to see your dashboard, which will have the FFRs that you're required to submit. So for example, if you have 4 grants from us, 101, 251, election security, and CARES, you'll see all 4 of those FFRs. They'll have the due date within the dashboard, and you can start to fill them out. So here there's an image showing you under your navigation on PMS where you can find the federal financial report. Once you're in a specific federal financial report, the first section that you'll encounter is the grant and grantee data boxes. So this is where you're going to have most of your information has been auto-populated and sent over from EAC, with the exception of the 2 boxes shown here. So box 6 is when, for the report due December 29th, you would choose annual. So the frequency of the report would be annual. And then if you have a report due April 30th, you would select semi-annual. So pretty straightforward. If you're ready for a final FFR, then that means you've expended all your federal funds and interest, then you please notify us in advance. We actually have to work with PMS to create your final FFR, and once that's done, you can fill it out in PMS. But that one does require advance notification to EAC. For box 7, we're talking about the basis of your accounting, whether it's cash or accrual. Now, if you're a finance person, you probably already know what this is. So accrual basis of accounting, it refers to the accounting in which expenses are recorded when incurred. For cash, it's when they're recorded when they're paid. So depending on how you are tracking your funds, you would select one or the other. Below the boxes is an image of what that looks like on the FFR form. You can see most of them are pretty easy. They're drop downs. They make it easy for you. You don't have to manually enter any text, and you can verify the grayed out information and make sure that it aligns with your understanding of your FFR. Our next section is basically the meat of your FFR. This is where the majority of what you're going to enter and the importance is here in section 10, your transactions. So we're going to walk through each of these 7 items in a little bit more detail, but just so you know, this is the whole of it that you're going to be entering. Anything else will either have already been sent over from EAC to PMS to auto-populate for you, or it's auto-calculated based on what you enter. So the first thing that you're going to enter are your cash disbursements. Here you're putting in the cumulative expenditures, and it would be the same as the second thing you're entering, which is line E, your federal expenditures from the beginning of the grant. So it's really important to know that your entry in the federal financial report is always cumulative. It starts from the beginning of the grant until the end of the reporting period, which is September 30th, 2020 for these specific FFRs. So just make sure that you're not doing it on an annual reporting, but a cumulative from the start of the grant.
And this is a change for all of the grants that were closed in 2019, the older Section 101 and 251 grants. In 2019, as you remember, we told you to report just on the carry forward amounts that were still unspent and not the funds that had already been spent. But now that we're going into PMS, we need to go back to cumulative from the beginning of the grant. When Kinza sent out the email a couple of weeks ago, it would help you with that process. To basically, what we did was we combined all of your previous expenditures with your 2019 expenditures so that you could start with what the cumulative amount was as of September 30th, 2019. So that was done for you. We also indicated in that you probably should double check this against your own accounting system just to make sure it's completely accurate. It's based on what you submitted to us in 2019.
Thank you, Peg. So moving on to line F, this is the federal share of unliquidated obligations. So this is, for example, you've already incurred the cost, but you haven't paid them yet. You simply enter the number in line F. So you know that you've already had a contract, but you haven't paid the contractor yet. You know how much it's going to be. You pop that number in this line. Then you get the total recipient share required. So this is going to be an area you're going to focus on reporting your cumulative state match, your interest earned on your state share as applicable, and all program income, and all, of course, cumulative, so it's from the beginning of the grant.
And again, just to reemphasize, that is a change from what we asked you to do for the 101 and the 251 grants that we closed out in 2019. Back to the cumulative reporting from the beginning of the grant.
So line J, basically you're just telling us how much of that recipient share you have spent out. Again, from the beginning of the grant until September 30th, 2020, what did you spend from your state funds, your interest earned on state funds, and your program income?
And we'll be going over briefly shortly in the remarks section some changes that we need to make here to be able to really understand source of interest and program income and the amount you expended during the year. But once again, we're back to cumulative from the beginning of the grant. And just so everyone is clear, you know that you're reporting interest earned on your state share as well as all program income in the recipient share of expenditures. And that is different from other federal grants where program income is reported in the program income section. But just to be clear also, some of you are meeting match with your current budget authority, and that's for 101 grants. With your 251 grants, you have to have made a cash contribution to the state election fund, so your state funds are earning interest there. So not all of you are going to be earning interest on your state share in your election security or your CARES grants, and possibly the older 101 grant.
Thank you, Peg. So line L, okay, so here, like Peg said, most other federal agencies, they ask for you to report your program income in line L. The title says for federal program income. We want you to ignore that. For this line, we ask you to report your federal interest earned, not program income. So this is where you're going to put in the federal interest earned. And of course, it's cumulative, and we know we're being repetitive, but just for your benefit. So this is the interest earned on the federal share from the beginning of the grant. Line L is program income expended. And so there's going to be a line L, a line N, excuse me, and a line M as in Mary. And M is subtractive. They take, when you earn program income, it takes away from the grant. At EAC, we always add. So we only want you to enter information in line N as in Nancy. So here you're going to enter the cumulative amount of funds you expended, federal interest earned. So forget that it says program income. Think of it as federal interest. And this is again from the beginning of the grant.
And just to reiterate also, this is only the interest on the federal share, not on your state share. That's reported in the state recipient share section of this, of transactions.
This is a preview of section 10, just so you can see what that layout looks like. If you haven't already signed into PMS, basically it's a form. It's going to help you calculate your numbers, totals, and also give you some checks and balances about if it thinks that you are entering information incorrectly. It's an easy way for you to fill out. There's also a way for you to do all 4 FFRs at once, which is the bulk edit. If you were not able to attend the PMS training back in October, you can reach out to PMS and schedule a training with them, and their website often shows upcoming trainings that you can sign up for. Those trainings are specific to their system. We're telling you how to fill out the FFR from the EAC perspective. They're going to tell you what system options you have in their software. This next section is about indirect cost rates, and most of our grantees do not exercise this. So if you don't have an indirect cost rate and you're not using the de minimis amount, you can kind of check out for a while. So we're not going to go super in depth right now. And if you are using it and you have more questions than we cover in this slide, please reach out to us and feel free to ask us any kinds of questions you have around this. We're happy to help you and to walk you through it. So the indirect cost section, at the bottom of the page, you can see what it looks like. There's drop downs, pretty easy to enter the different A through F sections. And then G is totaled automatically in the grayed out boxes. So in A, you're going to drop down and select the type of agreement that you have. And if you have an indirect cost agreement, it will say what kind of agreement it is, whether it's provisional, predetermined, etc. If you're using the de minimis, you're going to select final. Then you're going to enter the rate. So you're entering the indirect cost rate that you're going to be using during the reporting period. You know, if, depending on what your rate is, you can go anywhere up to the max of that rate or anywhere below, depending on how much you want to charge the grant. For C, you're entering basically the period from the start to how long the effective dates are for that rate. Even if you have an expired rate, you make sure you can enter that there. And for the base D, you're going to enter the amount against which the rate was applied. So this is where you total up from your expenditures, how much is going to be charged against the indirect cost rate. A lot of times your indirect cost agreement will tell you what kinds of things you cannot charge in your indirect. And so you want to make sure to leave those items off of your total. And then in amount charged, you're going to basically, it'll be calculating B multiplied times D, right? So it's rate times base to get you how much will be charged to indirect. Now in F, if part of your amount charged is going to your federal share, you enter it. It could vary depending on how you want to handle your expenditures. You could do the indirect cost as a state match, or you might want to split it up anywhere from 0 to 100 and charge some to the federal share or all of it to the federal share. If you're charging any to the federal share, you put it in F. And some organizations and grantees do have more than one indirect cost rate depending on the type of charges they have, you know, personnel versus, equipment or so on, sub-granting. So then they would enter their second indirect cost agreement in the second line below that, below the first one. Most of us will have one, and some of us will have one, most of us will have none. So that's all on indirect costs. Again, this is not an in-depth training on indirect cost rates. So if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to us as you work this out, and we'll be happy to respond. Okay, so now we're getting to the all-important remarks section. In the past, you have not really engaged with this section on behalf of EAC. We've not really required anything here. You've not entered anything here. But for this year and going forward, this is going to be a required section. You're going to use this section to enter the data that we're requesting below and any other information you want to give us to clarify the amounts on your FFR. So we do want you to report interest and program income separately, so don't combine them. If you did not earn that, you still want to report 0, but you must report. So what we're doing is we're breaking down what you've reported up in the form section into the current year view. So everything so far we've said to you on repeat has been cumulative from the start of the grant. This remarks section focuses on current year. When we say current year, we're talking about the current fiscal year for which you are reporting. So for this FFR that's due in this calendar year in December, the period ends September 30th, 2020, but starts October 1st, 2019. So that's a federal fiscal year. So October 1 through September 30th. And then you get 90 days to report on December 29th. So here you're going to break down your state interest earned. You're going to break down your state interest expended, and you're just going to give us a current year amount. Then you're going to break down your program income earned, and then you're going to break down your program income by source. So we need to know where the program income came from individually next to the whole amount. So let's say you got $10,000 from one source, another $5,000 from a different source. You're going to put the source down as well as the amount, and they're going to add up to your current year program income earned right above it. Then you're going to finally end with your program income expended. So if you did end up spending some of that program income in the current year, you report that here. Now on the next page, I'll show you what that would look like. So here it is. We have just, the beginning heading and then the dollar amount. And this is a text field. So we did auto-populate the headings for you in PMS. As you can see, 12 below, the image is pretty basic. It's really a text box, but it will have these 5 items in there. And then you're going to type them in versus, a drop down or anything else. But this is what it should look like. Now, if you don't fill this section out, we will have to return the FFR to you to complete and return back to us. Okay, and that's it. Then we get to certification. Depending on how you've set up your users, you will have a prepared by and a certified by. This is just an image of prepared by. Because you already have a user account, it'll auto-populate all the other fields, but you'll choose drop down, you'll choose your name for your organization. So if you are the only person there, you're going to be preparing and you're going to be certifying. But if you have multiple folks, different people can go in and complete the FFR, and you could have one certifier who reviews and submits it to EAC.
Okay, and we wanted to go through this particular slide, and it's pretty basic. You all are doing very well on this, I'm sure, but we just wanted to double check it because there's sometimes audit findings when our inspector in general goes out that we just want to make people aware of. So as you're completing your FFR each year, you need to make sure that the claim costs are included in the approved budget. Now, your approved budget for your 251 grant funds, if you still have that grant open, is the state plan that you submitted and that's on the EAC website. For your election security funds, it's the budget, the combined budget now with the 2018 and the 2020 funds in it. And you need to make sure that the costs claimed on your FFR reconcile to the accounting system. That would be a check you'll want to do as you're completing the FFR. And also ensuring that you have all the supporting documentation that you need to back up the claimed expenses. Is it on file? And are the salary, if you're claiming salary costs, are they supported with some kind of an appropriate timekeeping system? And this next one is one that is coming up in audits, which is, are you tracking and documenting equipment, grant-funded equipment on an inventory list? The current, the Code of Federal Regulation lists the things that you have to be tracking on an inventory list. And for most of you, you will be following your state laws and procedures for inventories. Another area is the allowability of promotional and marketing expenses. There are some marketing expenses and promotional expenses that are specifically prohibited for the use with the federal funds. And you'll find those in the Code of Federal Regulations in section 467 and 421. Most of you are not going to have any of those costs and don't need to worry about them. Most of them are related to promoting the organization overall, but expenses for communication to voters and so on are definitely allowable to give them information about how to register and how to vote. It's just the promotional or marketing of the organization itself that's unallowable. And then also, if you've made any capital improvements, you need to make sure that you have prior approval from EAC if you're going to include those costs in your expenditure report. And if you are claiming indirect costs, that you've calculated the amounts correctly. Should we go on to the next? There we go. Okay. And we're just going to go over a few questions that we've gotten quite a bit, and then we're going to open it up for questions from you. So just once again, to reiterate, where do you record interest earned on state matching funds? And that is in the state recipient share. So just so you know, EAC expects that line of required recipient share to go up each year based on interest that you earn or program income that you earn. And that goes for the 251 grant in particular. And as I mentioned earlier, it may not go for your election security grants because you may be meeting that match within current budget authority. But if we don't see it go up, we'll come back. And that's another reason why we want that information in the remarks section. Then we don't have to go back to you to request information about why it didn't go up. We might see 0 in the remarks section, which would make sense. And as we stated earlier, the interest earned on the federal share is what we use the program income section of the report. And then another thing related to program income, and here I wanted to basically define what program income is. And program income is income that you earn from activities or things you produce with grant funds. So for instance, if you are creating security training materials and then you charge voting districts for those materials, and you created those materials with funds under the federal grant, you charge them for it, that's program income. Net program income is what you've earned after you deduct any costs that you incur based on from that income. So for instance, the shipping cost for sending out training materials would be a cost associated, and you deduct that cost from your overall program income, and that's net program income. If you are not reporting the expenditures of shipping and the other costs associated with getting those materials out to someone, then you just report net program income as part of your state share. If you're including the expenditures, those expenditures, then you're going to include all of the gross program income in your state share. So I hope I said that correctly, that if you're not reporting those expenditures, then you report net program income. If you are including the expenditures in the state expenditure line, then you report gross program income in the recipient share. So here was another question that we got, and this is on the EAC website, and all of these actually are on the EAC website. What happens to interest earned during the period that you have your CARES funds when it's such a short period? If you don't spend it as of December 31st, 2020, that is funding that also gets returned to the federal government. However, we also said in the frequently asked questions on the website that EAC has determined that it's not required to keep the CARES grant funds in an interest-bearing account because you have them for less than a year. So if you have put them in an interest-bearing account and they're earning interest, if you don't spend it, it does come back to EAC at the end of the year. And once again, just to reiterate, you have to report each of your EAC grant funds on separate FFRs. It can't be one FFR with all of the amounts together.
Thank you, Peg. That brings us to our resources. So once this training is over, you can ask questions to us at grants@eac.gov. We did break out our subjects into two categories. We have the HAVA funding and the CARES funding email, so that we can triage your questions pretty quickly. Most of you have been using these already, so thank you for that. Again, that's your go-to for questions. If one of us is out of the office, the other one will receive the email and respond. Also, if you are having any kind of trouble with your account at PMS, EAC does not really have a look into that, but PMS has really good support. And so they do have this email, PMS FFR support at psc.hhs.gov, that you can reach out to. I do encourage everyone to try to log in with your credentials. And if you don't have credentials, make sure that you are starting the process now. If you wait too long, you will not be able to submit your FFR on time, and it will create problems down the road. Also, for reporting guidance, we have this section of our website specifically around our financial and progress reporting guides. Those are already posted. These slides are already posted. The font for the slides is a little bit small. You just go past the due dates under the Federal Financial Report section, and you'll find the slides are there for you. I know some of you might want to duplicate this training for colleagues or subgrants, so please go ahead and take what you need from these slides for that. The question is open. Please unmute your line if you have a question or enter it into chat and we will respond. So we did get a question on the chat. How soon will this be available to watch again? We anticipate it'll be up early next week, if not sooner. And we will post it to the same link, the reporting guidance. If you go to our website and you go to the grant section, you'll find the financial and progress reporting subsection there, and we'll post it to that. So just maybe navigate and familiarize yourself with the grant section of our website, and you'll know where to look for it.
Hi, I have a question.
Sure.
Regarding number 12 on the FFR remarks, you meant in the slide, is it just that we enter information regarding our interest that we earned, or is there anything else? Like that one?
Yeah, so it's your interest and your program income.
Interest. And our program income is our interest, right?
No, they're two different things. So as we share, the program income is income that you're making from your grant funds, and it's a different thing. So the interest would be earned depending on where you have parked your state funding, whether it's in an interest-bearing account and so on, and that would be earning interest over the life of it sitting there. And then you report on that cumulative and in this section on a current year basis.
The program
So our
income,
state match is not earning income. I mean interest.
right. So that's true if your 101 grants. 251 grants, do you still have your 251 grant open?
No.
Okay, so you probably are not, because you're meeting your state match with your current budget authority.
Correct.
You may, however, be earning program income, which is income that you earned as a result of things that you produced with grant funds. So my example of you created training materials and covered the cost of preparing and developing those materials with grant funds. If you then sell those training materials, that's what program income is.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, we don't have that. Thank you.
Sure. No other questions?
It's maybe one in chat. Let me just see. So one of the questions we got is, if my HAVA grant and my CARES grant are in the same interest-bearing fund, do I have to split the interest and contribute it proportionally to both grants, or can I attribute it all to my HAVA grant? Since we have had the CARES less than a year, or not required to be placed in an interest-bearing fund. So as we said, if you are earning interest on your CARES fund, you are supposed to be tracking that, and you do have to return that if you don't spend it by the end of the federal period of expenditure. So for when you combined different grant monies into one account, you still have to be able to track them separately and differentiate how much interest was earned by each of those pools of money. Our next question, can you explain why semi-annual financial reports are required when the notice of grant award normally refers to annual reports only.
So I can start with that. The CARES Act, the EAC, the election security grants, most recent notice of grant award amended to talk about both the annual and the semi-annual. The old 101 and the 251 grants do not yet do that. But the notice of grant award for the election security grants does refer to semi-annual.
I have another quick question. You mentioned that when we submit our final FFR, we need to send you an email. So I know when I submit our CARES FFR, it will be our final. So I just, before I submit it, just let you guys know that it's our final, and then you have to change something in the PMS.
Yes, that's perfect. You just let us know, and we'll just ask you a few follow-ups to confirm that it is truly final. And then we would ask PMS to set that up for you before you fill it out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Again, please feel free to enter your questions into chat. If you feel like it's a repetitive question, don't hesitate. Others may also be stuck on the same confusion or clarification. So please do enter it for the benefit of everyone. All right, well, not seeing any more questions. I just want to reiterate, this is not your last opportunity to interact with us. As you get into the system and start filling out your FFRs, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us and we will be happy to help you. And if you do have any account setup issues, PMS is your first and primary support, but we are also here to help navigate any unique challenges. Thank you again for your time today. We know you've been working really hard and you've done a great job with the 20-day reports for CARES, and it's been really a very busy year for everyone. So we really appreciate you guys being able to pivot and be flexible with this new process, and hopefully this process will streamline your FFRs and the reviews going forward.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.